Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mahamudra for the people. Um, Hope everyone's doing well, and everyone's relaxed. I hope you're not very tense. Hopefully, I won't make you more tense. So we're going to start off, as we've done in sessions past, with a little bit of sitting. And then we'll finish up actually this song by the Mahasiddha Suraha, which is great because then we'll move on to the next thing. Um, and I don't know that we'll move on to the next thing during this session. We'll kind of just take our time with practice and question and answer or anything that comes up and things of that nature. So for now, though, allow yourself to totally relax. And I wonder if Aaliyah is in her new home. Yeah, wow. Congratulations. I hope that was a good move.
It was. It's spectacular. Yeah. I
Hey,
could show you the sunset, but it might not let me show you if I can.
okay, sure.
I don't know if you'll see. No, it probably doesn't come
A little
through.
bit. Yeah, a little
A
bit.
little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
nice.
So yeah.
Move,
Easier to relax.
yeah, move out to the country. That's nice. Yeah. So allow yourself to uh, settle like a mountain and let your body be relaxed. Let your breath be relaxed. Let your mind also be relaxed. There's no need to be anxious or no need to really do anything. Allow yourself to let go of the past. It's everything from this moment previous. Completely liberated. Everything that may happen, who knows? Completely liberated. This particular moment, a moment of ease and complete liberation. Try and allow yourself to let go of any need to control anything. Allow yourself to let go of needing to figure anything out. And just rest. I'll rest like this for 12 minutes. And slowly bring your attention back to the group. Take a little moment to see what that was like. Just notice. So, maybe I want to check in now and see actually if anybody has any questions from a week of Mahamudra practice that you've been doing on your own, religiously and intensely, every moment of the day, at night, or not. Or any questions that might feel relevant right now. Dogmatically, yes. Yeah, very dogmatically. No? Okay. Oh, yes, Ekta, yeah.
I've sort of asked you this question before, but I've noticed, but it was in a previous practice that I was doing before I moved to this sort of meditation. And in the last few days, it has started coming up when I do Mahamudra as well, which is my body's response to this stillness. It's not painful, but I feel a lot of energy shifting dramatically in my body. Like, for instance, today I have a lot of pain in my head, but when I was sitting today, it's not a pranayam. I'm very clear about that because there was no breath involved, but I felt something in the lower abdomen region, like it pumped rhythmically for like 30, 40 times. And then everything from my head began to release. So I'm wondering, like, what is the body's response, like what are all the things at play when we are practicing something like this? How does it impact, or does it impact energetic levels? And what am so today I just let it happen. I didn't engage it, neither did I try to stop it, because in my previous practices the idea was to not let it happen, like you're just
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be present with the practice. But what I understand of this is that you're not engaging with anything that comes up, and you let it arise and pass away, which it did. Then it came back more mildly, and then it stopped completely. But you know, just it is so physical. um and so I just wanted to see if you had any thoughts about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I thank you. And that was a really nicely articulated question. Um, so yes, while there is not like, a pranayama component to this practice, it doesn't mean that the energies are not shifting or settling. And so what I have not been doing necessarily in right now while we're doing this song, but we could start to do it if it feels helpful for folks, is to give a little instruction on resting in the 7 points of Vairocana, right? And the reason why this is done is it causes all of the energies in the body to naturally settle and then potentially settle into the central channel. And the way one does this is to sit cross-legged. It doesn't really matter so much if it's full lotus or half lotus, and if you can do that, that's good. If you can't do that, that's fine too. Just seated with your back straight, but not uncomfortably straight. So your one instruction is like, imagine your vertebrae stacked like gold coins, right? So you can do that with your golden vertebrae. Allow your back to be straight. You can put your hands in meditation mudra on your, kind of comfortably in your lap. Alternatively, though, you can also keep them on your knees. Your shoulders, they say, have them be like the wings of a vulture flying, right? So you basically you want to have your chest open. And again, one does this as best as one can, given our bodies. So our head just slightly tilted, so it's like a slight hook down, eyes focused, to eat, finger widths from the tip of the nose, mouth closed. It's said, and this kind of depends on whether we can do this, but to kind of hold your jaw so that it is as if you can just pass a needle between your teeth, right? So meaning don't clench your jaw, and then the tongue of the mouth, tongue resting against the upper palate of the mouth naturally, right? We're not pushing or anything, and then letting your breath be relaxed. Right, so not only in the Mahamudra tradition is this said to allow for all of the energies to settle down into the central channel, but you see this in other contexts as well. So, Padampa Sangye, in his kind of, it's called the sky instructions that are both kind of Mahamudra / Dzogchen in style, begins with this, right? And he actually says that this is kind of like the ideal. Like the ideal is to just let everything settle naturally like this without having to engage pranayama, or any kind of work with energy. So we could do that naturally. Now the thing is though, is that this is kind of works two ways. The energies will settle naturally in this position, which is why it's basically been used for millennia. But then the other interesting thing is that when our body relaxes, the energies settle anyway, right? So you don't necessarily have to be in this posture. But if you are in this place of ease and relaxation, the energies begin to settle, right? And this will cause a sense of, an experience of equilibrium in the body, and also a sense of natural quiescence in the mind, right? So that there's not necessarily actually any work one has to do to kind of stabilize the mind. When the energies settle in this way, experiences like this can happen, where when maybe there had been tightness or even something along the lines of an energetic blockage, right, that just begins to kind of settle, right? So even this kind of experience of undulation, like an internal undulation, like you felt, in the lower part of your body. This too is these things beginning to just settle. I used to teach or provide meditation for both people in custody and correction officers on Rikers Island, and when I would get to people's hands, I would say, just relax your hands, and everybody's, hands up will be on their knees like fists, like they're ready to like, fight. And why it's so great to kind of catch ourselves in these states is to recognize how much we carry in terms of habituated tightness or anxiety or any kind of emotional complex, anger, in our body, right? So we will experience it physically, but then of course it also has this kind of internal impact as well. So when we let the body settle, generally everything else settles over time. Is that helpful, Ekta? Yeah.
Yeah.
And oh yeah, I'm sorry. Keep going.
Um, yeah, the posture definitely helps. What I've noticed is, since I've been doing this type of meditation, I am drawn to, like, I always sit here, like I've started sitting here even when we do our Sunday sessions,
Mm-hmm.
in front of my altar. So it is like what Eric was saying, what is the energetic or relational impact of these practices? Because it's like now I'm drawn to where the energy is possibly like a central channel, but not,
Mm-hmm.
but outside of me, if that makes any sense. So it definitely makes sense that things start evening out. And what I'm hearing from you is that we create the circumstances for it. We don't go looking for it. We're not trying to create it, replicate it, control it, nurture it, or any of those things. It is a process or whatever that comes up and goes away. And I'm okay with that. And it's wonderful to experience, and also that's the nature of the mind, that, oh, if it can happen once, why can't it happen again and again? And then when it doesn't happen, looking for it. So yeah, that's. And I also wanted to ask this question because I have not heard people asking this question. And sometimes when it happens to me, I feel weird, like, you're weird, you're moving too much, you're shaking too much, what's happening? So I just wanted to put it out there that, things happen in our bodies when we meditate, and it's totally, quote unquote, normal. It's just something that arises. Thank you,
Hmm.
Lamadra.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Yeah, I mean, I think, within the context of Mahamudra in particular, especially this form of Mahamudra, this kind of approach, uh, we're trying to just let everything settle, right? Then there is, for example, sometimes it's translated as like, mantra Mahamudra, or which is more connected to like completion stage yoga practices like Tumo, for example, which has a set of chokor or yogic exercises that involve actually kind of stimulating and causing, not forcing, but in some cases a little bit of forcing, manipulating the energies to be able to settle in the body. Um, and it's not that any one is better than the other, but they are. It's kind of like music. If you go onto Spotify, it's all music, but it doesn't sound the same, right? There are different styles, there are different, there's all sorts of stuff going on, right? And while it's all music, it's not the same. And so similarly, uh, within the context of Mahamudra, there is more essence Mahamudra, which is what this is considered, which is really just about letting everything settle. And it's very similar to Dzogchen as well. Even though in both Mahamudra and Dzogchen, there are these practices that do exist, not in every single presentation, where there can be the use of a skillful means to be able to help things to settle that way. Um, Casey, your hand was raised for a hot second.
Yeah, it was a hot second, and then I thought whatever it is you're about to say is going to be much more clear and useful. I just wanted to say that, yeah, I am glad that the idea of having a body and there being energetic appearances in resting states came up. I was having a sense just now in my navel chakra related to the Ratna family, a tremendous release of not present anxiety, but seemingly accumulated anxiety within the spaciousness that my body has learned to feel sense as that nadi and those and the distribution of that energy in that body region. And I really think that the original observation was perfectly succinct and be accommodated within this practice. It's just my observation.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, I think what both of you are bringing up too is it's worth considering how our practice, either in this particular fashion or with a more kind of willful, intentional practice of settling the energies, speaks to our own ability, our individual abilities to be able to affect a sense of regulation, right? It's a couple things. Like on one level, sometimes we will notice, Casey, like you just brought up, the force of habitual stored emotion, right? Emotion slash energy that causes these blockages. And the more that we do, just especially open awareness practice, because there's something so gentle and relaxed and easeful about it, it does eventually cause everything to settle, release, melt into a more spacious equilibrium, and we can feel that, energetically in our body. Sometimes it doesn't feel so good too. This can definitely happen. But I invite people to explore, intentionally, and maybe we could do some. Actually, maybe next week we can actually do a little bit of kind of basic yogic exercises around this, just so that there's a. We're just gonna throw the playbook right out the window. But the good thing about this is that it allows us the opportunity to become more invested in attending to our dysregulation. So physically, and then also spiritually, emotionally, through these kinds of practices, especially because whether we're practicing Mahamudra, whether we're practicing Dzogchen or both, ease and relaxation is key. And if you can't really white knuckle your way through these kinds of practices. And so everything we can do to, let it go, and let it process, let it release, helps, on the back end, so to speak, for the mind to rest really naturally into the non-dual state. Yeah, thank you, Jamie, for sharing. Does anyone have any other questions or reflections? Okay, yeah, well, we'll have some time later. Okay, so we are now in the very last part of the text, the third part, which is addresses the liberation of Mahamudra. And this is divided into 3 particular points. The first is the attainment of the result. The second is the delusion of wishing to attain non-attainment. And the third is complete non-attainment is called the attainment of Vajradhara. So all of these attainments we don't attain, we attain. And when we attain them, we attain awakening that is unattainable. Fun. With respect to attaining the attainment of the result, Saraha, the great Siddha, reminds us that there is no elimination or attainment whatsoever. There's no elimination or attainment whatsoever within the nature of space, which is primordially pure. Non-activity in the mind is Mahamudra. So do not perform any rejection in order to gain any result. Do not push anything away. There's so much in this. No elimination or attainment. So nothing to add. There's nothing to add to the mind of Katie or Drew or Remy or Astrid or Kyle or Nikki or anyone here. There's nothing to eliminate. Right? So there's no, what a relief, right? There's nothing to add, nothing to take away. Just letting everything be. And we don't need to become somebody else. We don't need to dress differently. We don't need to change our name. We don't need to appear differently. Within the nature of space, which is primordially pure, non-activity in the mind is Mahamudra. So there's this term, it's not, actually I believe it was the Mahasiddha Maitrepa who quote unquote coined it, called amanasikara. And amanasikara is this experience of mind that is this particular way, right? So it's this non-active mind, right? So there's no pushing. It's not deadening, right? We're not deadening the mind. We're not suppressing anything. We're not putting it to sleep, right? We're not causing any affect. We're just letting the mind completely let go of reactivity, right? This non-activity of the mind is Mahamudra. So it's kind of a manasikara aspect of, just letting everything be. Don't chase. Don't be smart. Don't be brilliant. Don't be analytical. And this is where we can roll up our diplomas, flush them down the toilet. Like it doesn't. That's not the kind of like mind we need. That's not the kind of brilliance we need. The carefully constructed identity has nothing to do with this. Right? Just resting in non-activity, not dullness. It's this natural stability that is always there. It's even there when there's a lot of thought activity. It's this basis, the basis of stasis. It's this like, even keeled presence. Right? This is Mahamudra. So do not perform any rejection in order to gain any result. Don't push anything away. Don't do anything. This comes back to Tilopa's point about don't control. Right? Don't control, don't reject, don't add. And this is very hard, like when we talk about conditioning, we're conditioned by language, we're conditioned by the faith traditions we may not have even practiced, but become a cultural basis around which a legal system, for example, works, or ideas we have about values of being a productive member of society. Like all of these things contain a kind of series of codes that condition us, right? The way we're raised, what we learn in school, what we learn at home, and what our parents teach us, what our friends and acquaintances help reinforce, what cultures, enforce within us, causes all this habituation, right? And so really, the kind of radical thing about Mahamudra, and we find the same thing in Hatha Yoga and Dzogchen, is this getting free of all of these things, all of these codes, all of these, assumptions, all of these projections. I was talking with somebody yesterday afternoon about there being nothing more revolutionary than an unpatterned mind. A mind that is completely free of patterning. Right? What does that even mean? And it's important to get a little curious, right? When we read the stories of the Mahasiddhas, which I urge everyone to do, and there are all sorts of problems with these texts too, like the majority of them were male, all of this stuff, right? So yes, we can just address that. That's true, and then look and feel into changing the gendering of all of them. Make the majority of them female, But the essence is really kind of look into how strange and unusual some of these people got, and they became quite unusual and strange because their minds became free, like free of patterning, free of societal patterning. I was talking with a very, very dear friend of mine last night about the climate change work that she's doing. And even then, I was thinking, wow, it may only be that some of the solutions to these problems can only be produced by minds that are revolutionarily unpatterned, right? That think differently. Maybe this is like, the big ultimate neurodivergence that we need, right? Is to just be totally different than we have been up until this point. Right? What does it mean to think absolutely differently? This is really important, right? So this is not even just like something for, my private spiritual practice that I'm hiding from all of you, and this is mine, and I own it, and I practice it, and I cultivated it. That's why I'm so great. But the application outward of Mahamudra is huge. What would a Mahamudra-based criminal justice system look like? What would a Mahamudra-based healthcare system look like? What would a Mahamudra-based, Department of Education look like? All of these things. Right. So when we make this vow to lead all sentient beings to the state of Mahamudra, and there are these aspiration prayers, especially in the Karmakaju tradition, it's quite common to find these. And we're asking all, we're setting planting the seeds that all sentient beings are able to exist with a mind freed from patterning. Racism would no longer be an issue. Right? Homophobia, ableism, patriarchy. Colonialism wouldn't be an issue. Ownership. All of these things. And obviously, this is not the case in this particular Sangha, but in other Sanghas, they would say, oh, well, this is a problem. This is political. Like, we only practice Dharma here. Right? But there, you really can't separate the two. And this is not to say, Dharma is inherently political, but maybe it is. I think the point is this Dharma impacts the environment, right? Dharma impacts the environment. Whether or not it's, being with somebody at the bedside, somebody who's sick or dying, right? When we bring Mahamudra to the person who is uncomfortable or scared, the person will tend to feel at ease and relaxed, right? Just because we're demonstrating this open, easy, carefree, non-judgmental presence. We bring this as parents, or if we're involved in a relationship with somebody, bring that to the person that we're involved with, or a circle of support or family. We're impacting that. But this very nature of these lines, right? There's no elimination or attainment whatsoever within the nature of space, which is primordially pure. Non-activity in the mind is Mahamudra. So do not perform any rejection in order to gain any result. Hoping mind, right? Hoping mind, this mind of acquisition, mergers and acquisition mind, is primordially unborn. So what real elimination or attainment could there be? So again, really getting in there with the stitch ripper of Mahamudra to kind of, rip up all the stitches, all of the patterns, all of the assumptions. My Mahamudra. I paid for the whole thing. I paid for the course, it's mine. Mine, and I'm good and you're bad because you didn't attend it. You couldn't afford it. All this ridiculous stuff. Right? Hoping mind is primordially unborn. What is it like to be primordially unborn? right? Never had the opportunity to exist, never had the opportunity to arise. Right? It has no real essence. It can't be. So what kind of elimination or attainment can there be? And gosh, how reassuring to recognize that, oh, nothing needs to be added to the basic state, and nothing needs to be taken away. I don't have to do a Google search to find out if patience should be added or, grumpiness taken away. It's all fine. It's all appearance. It's all what we practice with. And then Saraha points out the delusion of wishing to attain non-attainment. And so he says, just as animals that are afflicted with delusion run towards a mirage of water, ignorant individuals who are afflicted by desire, however hard they try to obtain Mahamudra, become even further away from it. Right? So who here, this is a show of hands, who here is suffering? Right? Yeah. I assume everybody whose cameras are not on are not suffering. Okay. Good. Yeah, we're all suffering, and that's okay. Hi, my name is Justin. I am suffering. I am in samsara. This piece about, like, especially this last one, like, ignorant individuals who are afflicted by desire, like, I want this. I want nirvana. I want freedom. I want release. I want to attain non-attainment. We're already, like, missing the boat. No matter how hard we try, we become even further away. Right? It's thinking, it's our kind of thinking. I want, I need, I have to have. Just let go. Just relax. Just settle. Just rest your body. Rest your breath. Rest your mind. Let go of the past. Let go of the future. Let go of this having to be anything. Let go of control. Let go of making anything happen. And rest. In those moments when we have clarity or insight, and we try and grab, notice what happens. Can't be grabbed. Can't be caught with a net. Can't seduce it. Can't use a mousetrap. Can't intimidate it. Only when we relax and rest into ease does that which had been in the background become the experience of the foreground. I was talking again, with the same friend about the environmental crisis, and they were talking with me about climate anxiety and then resilience building. And again, the nerd that I am, all I do is, like, hear things through the lens of, like, oh, how does Ati Yoga or Mahamudra apply to this? So just listening to her and thinking. we talk about resilience and all the different kinds of resilience that we need. Right? And most of us here are white right now in this group. So there's a certain element of anxiety that we just are not going to know. And I think, it's important to really kind of like stretch out Mahamudra and Hatha Yoga to be able to, for us to be able to see how this settling, like what is really needed for us to be able to settle into this relaxed state, right? What is needed in terms of comfort. And then again, what this, practice of Mahamudra in particular, in order to bring resilience to all beings, we have to begin to look at what it means to unpack this so that it can have applicability to all beings, right? All kinds of experience, every shade of anxiety. There's climate anxiety, which is, I happened to be talking with somebody earlier in the day who was in the midst of it. They were just very, very upset, right, about, and they framed it actually in terms of class warfare. They're like, how are any of us going to become liberated if all we're doing is working all the time? And if we're working all the time in a world that's falling apart because we're using it up and destroying it, like how easy is Mahamudra going to be in 10 years when we're anxious and terrified and concerned about resources and survival? And so this is, again, for those who may be parents of young children, this becomes also something to begin to model for your kids or younger generations. What does it mean to actually become settled? Yeah, these sources of self-esteem beyond carceral metrics of purity or goodness. Absolutely. Absolutely. So maybe we can use our practice of Mahamudra as a way to reclaim resilience, right? As a way to reclaim what it means to regulate, like Warren G, right? But to regulate our bodies, regulate our mind and our experience beyond all of this conceptual hardness, all of the boxes behind Travis, all of the boxes, the ideas, the concepts, the ignorance, the assumptions. Right? If we're really going to get free, we have to begin to do this work. Just as animals that are afflicted with delusion run towards the image of water, ignorant individuals who are afflicted by desire, this attainment, however hard they try, become even further away. Written into this is ease. I can't remember if I brought this up here, but I brought it up in the Hatha Yoga program on Sunday. So I'll bring it up here just in case. I just submitted this essay that will come out in the summer issue of Tricycle on Dark Retreat. And I was doing some research on, I don't know, just additional research. I was anticipating somebody attacking me. So I want to make sure what I wrote was really well written. So, and I came across this really nice description by Namkhai Norbu of blending in the importance of blending in relaxation to these kinds of practices, right? And what he suggested was that before anyone begins any kind of retreat associated with Dzogchen, and we can just push this out to Mahamudra as well, we should spend a lot of time sleeping and eating nutritious food and getting massaged and drinking aged wine, right? And the point is not to get drunk or any of this stuff, but it is to let yourself totally know some ease, some relaxation, to, again, Mahamudra and Dzogchen, of course, but in this case, Mahamudra is a practice of resting into open ease, right? So how can we begin to care for ourselves so that our bodies can meet us halfway, right? When our bodies are relaxed, everything else begins to settle. And we already kind of saw this a little bit, with what Ekta and Casey were sharing, right? When our bodies, the energetic body settles, the mind is able to just be able to arise with crystal clarity, right? When the body isn't, right? There's this tightness. And I really want to maybe see if people can feel into this over this week. Let's just check in. When your body feels tight, what is your experience of mind like? When your experience of mind is at ease, what is your body like in the moment? And again, helpful reflection to be able to, have a little bit more agency over addressing our dysregulation. Right? Taking the nose rope, so to speak, to quote Kampopa, how the bull has like a ring with a rope, attached to it. Like, we can take our own nose rope and not let others hold it, right? We can hold our nose rope, and we don't need the world of conceptualization to hold our nose rope, right? This is another way of saying we are in control, so to speak. We have agency, etc. Right? So really letting ourselves relax. So the final part of this completion is the complete non-attainment. It's called the attainment of Vajradhara. And here Saraha says, there is not the slightest difference within the completely pure nature that is primordially unborn. That which is primordially unborn has no separate parts. The examining mind in this moment is purified into space, which is merely the name given to Vajradhara. There's not the slightest difference within the completely pure nature that is primordially unborn. The examining mind, conceptual mind, this mind that's grasping and looking and trying to analyze and trying to crystallize or trying to split hairs. Well, what about this? What about that? What about this? When we're able to rest into this open, easeful, relaxed state that cannot be grasped, cannot be chased, can't have anything added to it, can't have anything taken away. This experience that is our natural face is the name Vajradhara, right? The primordial Buddha. Just like water which appears but does not exist. And these mirages that we see in the desert. Just so, the primordial purity, the purified examining mind, cannot be described as being either eternal or non-eternal. So it's beyond some godlike thing, and it's beyond some kind of nihilistic kind of thing. It's beyond eternalism and nihilism. It's primordially pure. Its existence is not something we even have to posit. We just rest into this direct experience. Fold up and put away the analysis and just settle into your liberation. Through the power of prayer, all hopes are fulfilled, as with a wish-fulfilling jewel or a wish-fulfilling tree. There is no world. There are no concepts. There is no relativity whatsoever within the sacred meaning. There is no world. There are no concepts. There is no relativity whatsoever within the sacred meaning. We need to get ourselves free. And it doesn't mean that there's no world. Look out the window and there's a noisy Brooklyn world. Right? But the concepts, the hardness of the world, the world that's out to get me, it's not that world. Right? That is the world of ideas, of concepts, of patterns, of what we've been taught. There's a much different world. And kind of coming back to this is a little bit like, the experiences of children. Right? Before we're educated, the world is a pretty open place. Right? Before we're educated, everything is possible. Before we're educated, we can be anything we want. Before we're educated, we tend to be able to look at anybody and see something amazing. And then we get educated. Oh no, not those people. Get educated. Oh, not that thing. People become educated. No, you're not qualified. Become educated. No, you shouldn't do that. You can't act this way. Can't think that way. Can't be that way. The world is like this, don't you know? Why do you have those dreams and desires? The world's not like that. Right? And so Saraha is saying, rip that up. Because that's not real. So, and that's where he ends. And the text says, that completes the Mahamudra instructions entitled the Doha Treasure, which came from the mouth of Shavara Saraha, which is translated by the Indian Pandita Varochana Rakshita. So does anyone have any questions or reflections? Or you can unmute yourself, or you can raise your hand, or put something in the text box. Should we sit? Yeah, let's do that. So as we sit, set the timer. Allow yourself again to let your body settle. Let your breath be relaxed. Allow yourself to rest free of the past. Let go of the future. Let go of the present, needing to be any particular way. Let go of control, or making anything happen. rest freely, like a mind that's completely unpatterned. And slowly bring your attention back to the group. So we have about 10 minutes left. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts or concerns? Yes, Travis, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about patterning and reactivity. Like earlier in this session, you were talking about reactivity. I realized that I usually associate that with reacting to something that comes from outside. Like, oh, that person like makes me feel upset or anger or something. And then reactivity would be like, I'm mad now, and that's how I'm behaving.
Mhm.
You know, that feels like a crude, like kind of version of reactivity. And that it's related to something that I keep bringing up where like there seems to be like a reactivity to like space. So when you're talking about like non-activity, sort of that kind of just natural space, there's a kind of recoil that I experience that seems to be kind of a reaction to that. And so that's one version of reactivity. And then where patterning comes in, just in that session, it's like when whatever is just kind of coming through just flows through, that kind of has the quality of patterning. There's just this pattern of kind of like thought that comes through, and then that can happen like kind of with or without the reactivity. Like the reactivity there would be like, oh, that thought, that's like really shameful. Now I'm kind of wound up and now I'm thinking about another thing, you know, like that. Or it just kind of like, it's just like a kind of river of stuff. And then I kind of start to feel that like desire for Mahamudra where I'm like, oh, this is so mundane. Like, where's the kind of, you know, the, you know, the empty bliss or something. This is just kind of, this is too kind of mundane. So then that's another kind of reactivity. So I guess those two. So the reactivity can come either when it is that kind of like just openness as a recoil, or like to some sort of like, you know, mental activity that's then a kind of reaction or a judgment or something like on top of that.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, these noticings are a little bit like looking at the rings of a tree that's been cut, right? You just see when there's been a lot of water, when there's been drought, when there may have been a fire, and that's all, right? There's no need to get tight with ourselves around the way the patterning has happened, right? It's kind of like looking at ourselves in the mirror and being like, man, like we can't even really react to how we've grown. Right? I mean, we could be like, oh, you're ugly, Justin, or oh, damn, like you're hot, Justin, or oh boy, it's just what's happening, right? And because it's what's happening, like if we could just like, this is hard, right? It's hard to do. It's hard to become aware of the stickiness or the pushback or the projection or whatever the mechanism that's there in play. But what's most important is not even lifting a finger. Kind of pretend you're from New York and just don't be impressed. Just whatever, and then release. And yeah, the spaciousness, lack of reference point, letting go can be really off-putting in the beginning, right? Because again, we've all to some extent been conditioned to be existent in this way, right? And it's not to say nobody here exists or nobody here should exist, but it is to say that there's a lot of power and brilliance in just letting go. And this is this, Amanasikara of Maitripa. Like cut the root of the mind. Practice like a corpse. Let yourself be dead. Stop. Stop. And it's not stop, repress, right? Or it's not stop, you're not worth it. It's just stop. Yeah, at the end of the last calendar year, I had like a lot kind of going on in my mind that was just, it would reeling. And then I would stop and I'd be, oh my God, all of that energy of just holding that or thinking about it or worrying about it or this or that or did, stop. There's this, I was telling someone about this one particular painting I saw of the Buddha right after awakening or right at awakening, right? And it's just all these like gods and demons with spears and dancing, people trying to seduce, Siddhartha and rakshas and yakshas all there, like, and there's the Buddha sitting, and then the whole rest of the painting was just all of these beings, right? All of the patterns, all of the habits, all of the projections, all of the neurosis, all of this stuff, right? And for us, we're just here. Just let that stuff go, And it's hard. It's work, and it's also a little simple, too, unfortunately. Waveney, did you have your hand raised for a second? Oh, I can't hear you. I'm not sure.
No, thank you. I was just brushing away a little fly.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yeah. But like I think the thing about the projections that's worth considering, right, is just just from the standpoint only of mechanics, how amazing it is that they just come, right? The reactivity. And I think you're right. The reactivity isn't just like, hey, thought, like you're bad, or hey, thought, that's not what I want. But it's, again, it's the subsequent reinvestment of energy after the thing that naturally arises. And it becomes really fascinating to begin to kind of like get curious about unconscious bias in relationship to this too, right? Like all I'm doing is sitting here, and there is a world of play, of projection, of assumption, of so we can. I think the thing about this practice and or Dzogchen is the level of granularity that we can hold in the practice impacts the degree to which it kind of rips apart a lot of our patterning. And so if we can actually begin to hold space for unconscious bias in this practice as a stitch ripper, right, then we can actually perhaps get a little bit more subtle with our patterning or reactivity or assumptions or projections, etc. Because again, you know, like quote unquote, theologically speaking, we're all Vajradhara, right? We're all Buddhas, right? So the quote unquote, like, liberation of everything that arises is possible. Yeah, but we have to be able to be willing to engage that process, right? Which means we have to also let go of everything that is experienced, you know, which is helpful because I think on average we carry too much. We think we need to carry it all. We don't need to carry shit. We just, you know, we need to, you know, practice like a simpleton, like the wind. Comes and goes, comes and goes, comes and goes. But the moment we're like, oh, my baseline is this problem or this klesha or this habit or this, you know, all of a sudden we've, you know, like, you know, just, you know. Saraha would be fun to hang out with now. Go down to Washington, D.C. with him. So anyway, it's really good to be with everybody. And so next week we'll do some physical stuff, right? We'll do some yoga and maybe, you know, get into some more focused instruction on seating ourselves in practice, and also maybe laying down, doing some corpse practice, and then the week afterwards we'll come back to the next doha, which is by the Mahasiddha Virupa, who's a personal fave of mine. So very briefly, let's dedicate the merit to all beings, so that all beings are able to recognize their mind as primordial, spacious, relaxed, fundamental awakening. May every yogini and yogi who practices Mahamudra be able to effortlessly recognize this. And may we all support one another as we support others to rest into the experience of Mahamudra. Take very good care of yourselves, be well, and I'll see you later.